Hi everyone, and welcome to the SYLJUS talk. Today I want to show you something that we have been working on with our open source community for the past few years. And the name of the project is SYLJUS. The simplest description is Decoupled e-commerce platform. So this is what I want to show you. Another point of this presentation is to also get you excited about what open source can achieve, and hopefully make you excited enough to be involved in open source community, be it at SYLJUS or other open source projects, because I strongly believe that that's the best way to develop software nowadays, where you have the effort of the whole community and many, many benefits of this approach. My name is Paweł Jędrzejewski. I started SYLJUS project, like the first bits of code were written in 2011, so pretty long time ago, but it was my pet project, so it has been evolving through all these years, very intensively changing in terms of community, architecture, and everything. But we have never been so close to a stable release, so I would say we are at the end of the first chapter. I also co-founded a company called Lakion, which basically grew out of SYLJUS because there was a high demand for commercial services. So initially there was just me and SYLJUS and the community, of course, but at some point more and more companies were interested in paid support and having someone to help them when things go wrong and so on. I also help co-organize our local PHP meetup in my city, which is Łódź. I really encourage you to check this city when you are in Poland, because there is a lot of things going on, a lot of new companies, and really good stuff. So, what is SYLJUS? In just a few words, it's an open source e-commerce platform for PHP. It's released under the MIT license, which is one of the most permissive license. Basically, you download SYLJUS and you can do whatever you want. You can even sell it. The only thing that you need to keep is the copyright notice and so on. And why this license works for us? Because the biggest value is not in the code itself. It's in the whole community, the ecosystem, the people around the project, the core team, and so on. So basically, if your boss asks you, what do you need? They need to pay, or what kind of requirements they need to meet in order to use SYLJUS. Pretty much nothing. Just download it and do whatever you want. You can modify the core, you can create your own components, and so on. So this is truly open source project. Currently, we have over 315 contributors to the code and documentation. Then this goes from Cuba to Nepal. This is really global project. We have contributions from Germany, from France, from the United States. So it's really global project. Our packages in total, these are stats from packages, have been downloaded almost 2 million times right now. By packages, I mean the libraries that we have and the full platform. I will explain the architecture a bit later. Little over 500 people have been involved in translating SYLJUS into different languages, and this is really exciting. And in terms of how fast we move, right now, for the past few months, we have been merging close to 200 pull requests a month. This is small bug fixes, big features, and so on. So we have really intensive development going right now, which resulted in close to 13,000 Travis CI builds. Thank you for Travis. This is the most amazing service ever. Yeah, this is last month at SYLJUS. Pretty busy with 186 active pull requests. So there's a lot of going on. You can see it all on GitHub. It's public. You can participate. You can open an issue with a support request. You can go to Stack Overflow. So we are just standard community project that is very open to new developers. Okay, but what makes SYLJUS different, and why it got this, why am I here basically? What is different about SYLJUS that makes people interested in it? So my conclusion when I started building Sylius was that not every e-commerce webshop is the same. Like you can have a standard software, but when I was starting the development, I basically had one customer that needed 2 shops. They were very similar in a way, but at the same time they had just slight differences, selling different products, a bit different checkout, and so on. So at the time, my options were basically use something like Magento, which is great, but it was too big for me. I didn't have enough experience to use it, and honestly, it would be an overkill. My other choice was, for example, PrestaShop, which is also a great project, but I was getting interested in like solid principles, clean code, testing, and this was not something that was part of the philosophy of these projects. So my option was to build something on my own. Obviously, it's very often a mistake to build something from scratch, but sometimes it pays off and it gets traction. It turns out to be the right thing. So I was very lucky to discover Symfony, Symfony framework. At the time, it was just an orange banner in the right corner of the Symfony 1 website. It was called Symfony Reloaded, and it perfectly fit the kind of development that I wanted to do. It was about clean code, it was about separation of concerns, it had components, it had this amazing system of bundles. So I basically decided to build some e-commerce bundles. I didn't want to install a full shop for this customer. I just wanted to have some building blocks that I can reuse between them, just like libraries. And Symfony was a perfect fit for me because it had this system of bundles already. So it started with some really basic stuff like the catalog bundle, which gave me the product model and so on. Then I added sales bundle to process some orders and other very, very simple modules. Right now, we have plenty of e-commerce components. And by components, I mean standalone PHP libraries, as well as Symfony bundles. I will show in a second how it all comes together into full platform. But right now, we have pretty much, for the basic, or I would even say a bit more advanced webshop, we have pretty much all the functionality that you need, which is product catalog with support of attributes, options, product variation. We even have a system of archetypes that allow you to create similar products quicker and so on. And every single component here is usable standalone without the rest of the Sylius platform. So if you take a taxation component that you see in this list as an example, its only responsibility is to calculate the taxes. It doesn't make any assumptions about whether it will be taxes for products that you sell. It doesn't even know about the product components from Sylius. So it's fully decoupled, standalone PHP library that is not even coupled to Symfony. It consists of several services, interfaces, of course, and basically what you need to do to start using it is to implement, in case of taxation bundle, this is an interface called taxable interface. So any object that implements that interface can be used for tax calculation with different tax rates, tax categories, tax zones, but nothing else is concerned of this component. So this kind of gives you an idea what kind of decoupling Sylius has, and this is true for pretty much every component here. So addressing knows only about countries, provinces, also about geographical zones, but nothing else. So you can kind of get a feeling that if you have a project that is maybe not strictly e-commerce webshop, but let's say that you could even use addressing component for a CMS. I will show later some code examples with how you can use services to, for example, get the geographical zone of given address. And then it's up to you what do you do that with that information. In case of Sylius, we use that to calculate taxes and shipping fees, but you could use to display some specific content for United States or Europe. We have seen projects doing that as well. There's also a few components which are not directly related to e-commerce. One of my favorite one is attribute component. Basically, it contains interfaces and models that allow you to attach a simple attribute system to pretty much every entity. Real-world example is that in Sylius, we use that for product attributes, obviously, but one of companies that use Sylius use this attribute system for the store locator. So they implemented a simple store locator, and they wanted to attach some attributes to every store. So they basically forgot about the whole Sylius as a whole and just used this component for the use case. So there is plenty of stuff that is not even that can be useful for you even if you don't do e-commerce. In total, we have over 70 standalone packages. All are available in packages, so you can just include them in your composer.json file and start using them right away. And one of the most important things about Sylius is that it's built by developers for developers. I do not have a strong business background in e-commerce. I'm a developer myself, and pretty much most of the Sylius community is developers. Sylius doesn't look that pretty in the front yet. So it's not CEOs that are like excited about, oh, this is a beautiful store. It's the developers that come to us. It's the CTOs, it's senior developers that are tired of the old ways of development, that want to write tests because everyone is talking about testing and so on. But the platform that they currently use do not allow that. I will talk about testability in a few minutes, and you will see that we take testing really seriously. And this is both true for the core development and for the development that you do for your custom project. So as developers, we want to build something that is pleasant to work with for you, but at the same time, especially at Lakion, we are eating our own dog food, basically. So we are using Sylius as developers too. So we try to figure out what are the use cases and how we can basically make your life as a developer easier. And this, of course, results in much better business results. Not everyone understands that, but developer productivity is very, very important for company success. So if you look at Sylius as a whole, this is obviously the big picture. You have a set of PHP components, the Sylius components in the bottom, which are PHP libraries. So they are not coupled to any framework. We use Symfony, but the components are completely standalone PHP libraries. You can use them with Laravel, you can use them with Zend, you can use them in pretty much any PHP 5.5 plus project or library. And what is exciting about that, we actually have not started this way. Initially, there was only a set of bundles for Symfony, but there have been other communities from Laravel, from Zend, asking us, okay, that's cool, like we like how Sylius works and the philosophy, but we don't kind of know Symfony or don't have time to learn it. We prefer Laravel or Zend. So there are already communities that are interested in implementing kind of their own version of e-commerce with their favorite framework. This is definitely something very interesting to explore. The second level in the Sylius cake is the bundles. And simplest explanation of what I mean by bundles is just Symfony bundles. So the goal here is basically if you are a Symfony developer and you want to use like the taxation component in your standalone in your project, basically we save you time that you would need to spend on configuring forms or services in Symfony container. We just give you the bundle, you include it in your application. With minimal or even no configuration, you have all access to all the services, models, you can configure tax rates, tax categories, and use that for calculating whatever kind of taxes you can imagine. And the third level, like the top level, is Sylius platform. And this is basically a full stack Symfony application. So it's based on the full Symfony framework, not only the bundles, not only some components like HTTP Foundation, it's just full Symfony app. It's based on Symfony standard, of course. And this is mostly targeted to developers who know Symfony, of course, and for developers who don't have such strong opinions on like their favorite framework and they are open to try something better, something new. And SYLJUS platform gives you basically, as I wouldn't compare it to Magento or PrestaShop because you don't get maybe all the features that these systems have, and it's not such complete. But it gives you the standard web shop experience with product reviews, with categories, with the checkout, with the cart, with the account panel for the user. So I would say it's pretty feature-rich. But I wouldn't put it next to like Magento because it's more of a platform that you as a developer use to develop things. In many cases, you need to decide whether you want to use the full platform or take the components and combine them yourself in a way that fits your business model. Because like I said, not every e-commerce nowadays is a standard web shop. So for a standard web shop, platform would be perfect. And for a very, very custom e-commerce business model, I would say you could go with components and combine them in the way that works for you. Or you could customize the platform. It's very flexible, just like every Symfony application. So there's plenty of things that you can adjust with. We have both configuration and conventions. So customizing the platform to fit your business model is also a good way to go because you don't need to like do a lot of things again. Like we do it for you, just customize it to fit your business model. This is the plan and the way that we're going for 1.0. This is mostly completed work. We have the set of components. We have the core that integrates all other components. In simplest words, the core component is just another component where, for example, the product variant finally learns that it has a tax category. So as I gave you an example with taxable interface, the core component is where the product variant implements the taxable interface. It also implements various shipping interfaces and so on. So the core is the glue for all other components. It's like the default configuration that we give you with SYLJUS. You can build your own. You can customize this one, but this is like solid foundation for development. Then we have three elements: admin, shop, and API. And these are basically Symfony bundles that you can turn on and off. So one of the projects, example project that I will show you, is an application where we disabled the shop interface because we were using only the administration interface and the API, so there was no reason to use the shop frontend. Just turn it off. And you can do the same, of course, for admin and API. So, like I said, Symfony is our framework of choice for the platform, and this has tremendous benefits for you as a developer. First of all, of course, I'm deep in Symfony community, so I have a very strong opinion that Symfony is the best framework. And I think working for many years on a huge project and huge commercial projects with that kind of proved it, that it is a very good framework. It has some drawbacks, just like every framework, but I would say it's really a very good choice, even if you are starting out with frameworks. It's perfect for like shifting from this magic Ruby style development in the old frameworks to proper object-oriented programming, application architecture, decoupling, modules, and so on. But there are other reasons that make Symfony worthwhile for us is that basically we follow for custom development and for core development, we do things Symfony way. So if you're a Symfony developer, you can be productive from day one on a SYLJUS project, even if you see it for the first time, because everything will look familiar. Like you have doctrine, you have entity manager, repository pattern, you have standard form types. You should feel basically like at home. For CTOs and people who assemble teams, this is also great because you really can feel safe about hiring a Symfony developer and putting him on Symfony on the Sylius project. And we see that every day because we work with several big companies that work on the Sylius projects right now. They hire Symfony developers, and within 1 week or 2 weeks, we see them on GitHub contributing to Sylius. So this is even more than custom development. They are like up to speed in days, and they can contribute to the core platform itself. We are also using Symfony CMF, and I'm not sure if you know this project, but it's also another one of the big projects based on Symfony. It's content management framework. Sylius is not a CMS, and the CMS functionality that we provide is very simple. We have some pages, very basic menu management, some blog system, of course, but it's very, very simple, built on top of Symfony CMF. But Symfony CMF provides you a very solid foundation for any CMS kind of functionality. It gives you PHP content repository, which is a PHP adaptation of the Java content repository. So it gives you a really, really solid base for any CMS functionality that you want to develop. But like I said, our focus is not CMS, of course. We'll be focusing on e-commerce functionality, but you still have that for simple use cases. And if you need something advanced in terms of CMS, I will give you a solution in a few moments. We also use other, we are very open. We don't really want to reinvent the wheel. If you look at Sylius, it doesn't even handle payments on its own. Like in the core, there is very little code related to the payment processing. We use another framework, a PHP library that is included, of course, in our composer. We have a small payment bundle that integrates this library with us, but this is a payment processing framework. So it's not only payment gateway, it integrates with PayPal, Stripe, and tons of other gateways, but it's payment processing framework. So we delegate all the stuff that is related to payment processing to a separate project that has its own community. Of course, the communities are intersecting because we work together, and then they have contributed a lot to Sylius, but this is what we use for payments. It gives you a PHP object-oriented abstraction layer for payment processing, for capturing, for refunds. So you can just use these services and classes and actions and forget about what kind of specific gateway is behind the scenes. So the code in Sylius is just payment integration. What processes the payment in the end, whether it's Stripe or PayPal, it doesn't matter for us. Another cool thing about Sylius is it's format agnostic. So we don't assume that everything that you do will output HTML. We use the excellent FOSS-REST bundle and Bazinga HateOS bundle from Symfony community, and our controllers can produce whatever format you want. By default, they support HTML, XML, and JSON. So if you want to build some custom page, and what Sylius has by default is not enough, you have a ready-to-use toolset that doesn't care about the output format. If you say that give me HTML, it will give you the data in a Twig template, of course. We use Twig. If you request XML or JSON, it will serialize the data. This is how we built our API, actually. Like the controllers that we use in the backend for example, for creating a new tax category is the exactly same code that handles the API action. Basically, our controllers are format agnostic. And what is cool that you can use these for your own entities. One of the examples that I give at my workshops is adding a selection of packaging types to shipments. So you can simply generate an entity, configure in a few lines of YML, the grid view, like what kind of columns, filters, and sorting it has, register it as a resource, and you get a full backend view for it with CRUD operations and an API, XML or JSON. So real-world examples, what you can do, what you can build using Sylius. This is one of our projects at Lakion. It's a clinkdelivery.com. It's a startup from US that handles alcohol delivery on demand. So basically, you pull out your phone if you're in Washington, I think Miami and Dallas in Texas. We will be soon launching in Vegas and a few other states. Basically, you pull out your phone, you pick the alcohol that you want, you confirm, and if your credit card is already registered, the delivery is on its way in just a matter of minutes. So what we did here is we basically used Sylius as an API. We disabled the shop frontend because we don't render it. The website is consuming Sylius API as well. And we have used Sylius components because we wanted to have like kind of microservice approach, because we deliver in different states, in different time zones, from different stores, which have different opening hours, and different products available, pricing, and so on. We didn't want to put all that in Sylius, because that would make it big monolithic application. So we picked the components that we needed from Sylius for API, for payments, for addressing, for the grids, so the admin interface generation, and so on. And we have built much smaller APIs on standard Symfony edition that communicates with all the other APIs. So this is another use case for Sylius where you don't take you take full platform to process orders, to register customers, and so on, but you take some of the components out and use them for building separate standalone applications. This is one of the cool examples. It's a very simple website that was built on Symfony, and at some point they wanted to introduce e-commerce functionality. So I haven't been working on this project, but as far as I know, they basically took cart bundle and payment bundle, and that's it. They just integrated the checkout, the cart, without inventory handling and so on, because they sell virtual products. So another great use case is when you have an existing Symfony application, your boss comes to you and says, okay, we need a shopping cart. So before that, your options are like integrate with some external API, integrate with like put another instance next to your Symfony application of PrestaShop, for example, and figure out how to integrate them. Or you can just take the components that Sylius have, plug them into your app kernel, just like you do with all the Symfony bundles, and start with minimal code, basically implement shopping cart functionality for your website. We also have examples of standard web shops. This one is with heavy use of CMF. So while we're not experts at CMS, with Symfony CMF as a foundation, we were able to very quickly implement inline editing for this whole website and pack it with a set of really nice CMS features. We also have bigger web shops. I mean, big is always relative, but in terms of volume, this one has like 30K products, processing 3,000 orders a month with 40 million page views together with the magazine that it is attached to. So while Sylius is not stable yet, it is constantly tested in production. That's one of the biggest benefits of open source. It's like in minutes after we merge something or we release a new version, we get reports of some issues, of some improvements, because there is a huge number of projects that update regularly. Right now I'm about to tag version 0.18, but I'm waiting for feedback from some companies that are upgrading to the latest master branch. So it is a very good way to have a really tested product even before it is launched. It has been running in production on some website for years now. The modern foundation I was talking about with Symfony gives us a lot more benefits. Other projects that are based on Symfony, or OCRM, Akeneo, Drupal, easypublish, give us completely new possibilities for integration. Best example is easypublish. Any easy developers here? Oh, no CMS people. But if you need if you have a content-heavy website that needs a shop as well, your choices right now are limited. You can go, for example, with Drupal 7 and Drupal Commerce, which is awesome, but Drupal 8 is out. As far as I know, Drupal Commerce Drupal Commerce 2.0 is still in development. So what are your options? There is actually a website running in production that uses easypublish, which has Sylius inside of its kernel. Like, basically, it's an easypublish application, which is based on Symfony standard, but it has all the bundles that Sylius has included. So they basically build the website in Easy Publish, but in the places like the cart or product list or adding to the cart, this stuff is handled by Sylius. And what it means for a developer, it means that you have the same technology stack, you have access to same two sets of services, you have access to all the templates. So for example, the website layout lives in Easy Publish, and with just creation of one file for the cart template in Sylius, they customized it to use this layout. It's both tweaked, so it's compatible, and you basically can embed parts of Sylius in Easy Publish website and vice versa. So it's really different kind of integration where you don't necessarily talk through API or implement some plugin that uses CSV files or something like that. It's a completely new type of integration where two hugely different applications live together in a single kernel. This is available as a standalone component. So you can have an existing Easy Platform project, take this plugin, take Sylius, and integrate it into your existing website. This is still, of course, experimental. There is a website running in production, quite big website for, I think, Norwegian company that uses that approach, and we are constantly improving that, and definitely this idea will be pushed toward. Hopefully, with other platforms as well, because the thing that connects all Symfony applications is this HTTP kernel interface. So even Drupal 8, which is not based on the full-stack Symfony like Sylius, uses the same interface to handle request and response workflow. So this opens completely new possibilities as well. Another thing that people use Sylius for is migrating from legacy. Because obviously, anyone who was involved in any kind of big rewrite knows that they usually fail or they take long enough that they kind of become irrelevant. So another much smarter approach that people use with Symfony and Sylius is they wrap the legacy websites with Symfony. So the request goes to Symfony and is redirected to the legacy application if it matches like the old URLs. And to the new stack on Symfony, the new stuff is developed basically on the Symfony side. So you can very successfully use Sylius components to slowly integrate. Like one of the things that I actually did for a legacy website was replace the category system with Sylius category system. The next step was products. The next step was the card, and so on. So we can safely and efficiently migrate some of the stuff without the need of rewriting the whole platform. And Sylius is built about single responsibility principle on all levels. So like you have taxation component that is responsible for taxes. You also have the single responsibility principle applied to our classes. So if you look at, for example, the zone matcher service interface, this is the contract that we set in Sylius, and we say that this service, that the class that implements this service is responsible for returning the best matching zone for given address. So as you can see, this is a single responsibility, and there is a single Symfony service that implements that interface, and you can swap it out in a matter of minutes. You just implement your own version of Zone Matcher. You tell Symfony that redefine this service in one line of YML, two maybe lines of YML, and it starts using your own implementation. And this is true for pretty much every concept in Sylius. I'm not sure how visible it is, but this is our code for processing promotions. So in these 10 lines of code, you have several services, all with set contracts, with set interfaces, that collaborate to apply the promotion to the order. So if you look at these 10 lines, you have like reverting promotions, because if you added something for free, we have a promotion like that. You need to remove it before recalculating and so on. We have pre-qualified promotions. So for performance reasons, we get the promotions that fit the current time frame and so on without checking their rules and so on. Exclusive promotions and so on. This all fits in 10 lines, and you can replace pretty much every single bit of the implementation here. with just implementing your own version. We have the contracts, the interfaces, so all you need to do is just provide your own implementation if you want to. You can decorate, of course, our implementation. That's the recommended way. One of the cool examples is, this is a calculator interface from our shipping component. So services that implement this interface are responsible for calculating the cost of shipping. We don't make any assumptions. We just pass the shipping subject interface, which in case of Sylius is a shipment. In your own implementation, it can be something different. So if you get a request from the management, from the project manager to implement a different pricing strategy, it can even talk to external API. All you need to do is implement this interface and call it my API shipping calculator that implements this interface. Implement the calculate method in that case that will do whatever you want. It can communicate to the API or do other smart things. You register it in the Symfony container just as a service. If you look at Symfony documentation, it has excellent quality. It's one of the best documentations for an open source project I've ever seen. You have all the stuff about services documented in few lines of XML, YML, or even PHP if you prefer. We don't enforce that. You can say that, okay, so my API calculator from now on should be recognized as shipping calculator in Sylius. And this results that in just a few seconds, it appears in the backend for the users, for the end user, that configures a shipping method in that case. It becomes available in the store. You can use it right away. It will be used in the checkout if someone selects this newly created shipping method. And we have the same approach for pricing. So you can do custom pricing calculators, custom tax calculators. We have this for promotion rules and actions. As you can guess, if all rules on a promotion are satisfied, then all actions are executed and so on. An example of promotion rule that you could implement with that approach is one that checks the weather in the city. If it's raining, give a discount to everyone, whatever. It's just totally up to you what kind of stuff you implement. We just provide the foundation. We, of course, have default promotion rules and calculators like item total, country rules, and so on, but it's totally up to you what you implement for your custom shop. And a few words about testability, because we take it really seriously. Sylius is developed from the very early days with PHP spec and Behat. If you have been familiar with test-driven development, you probably heard about behavior-driven development. It's very similar thing. Just the naming is better, and it makes more clear to newcomers to understand what's the exact workflow. We basically use Behat to describe Sylius functionality with this kind of scenarios. So in the background, we have the full store configuration, which says that the store operates on a single channel. The store ships to France and Australia. There is an EU zone. There are some taxes. And then we have a scenario where we add a product to the cart. So all this is available to you as a ready-to-use dictionary that you can use in your custom project. So your product manager says that, hey, in our shop that sells to Australia and Germany, there should be taxes calculated this way. You can write these scenarios which will configure your store, and basically your task is only to make them green. In core, we execute all these scenarios on Travis CI. So every single change that is applied to Sylius is checked against all these scenarios. We have right now, I don't know, 10,000 steps, something like that, 9,000 steps, both through Selenium and emulated browser. So all these scenarios are executed and verify that Sylius behaves in a very specific way that we have implemented. And the great thing is that it basically results in a really good code quality. Remember that we are a fully open source product. I would love it to be 10, but we have contributors with varying skills and so on. We can't reject everyone to be perfectionist. We have over 300 contributors. But we're constantly improving the code quality, and many people, because this is just static code analysis, of course, the design is really appreciated by developers, and we are constantly improving that. And the good thing is that you can use these scenarios in your own development. So this can be executed, the whole SYLJUS suite, and your extra scenarios can be executed in your application. So this gives you a very clear workflow as a developer on how to implement, how to customize SYLJUS. If you look at old solutions, this is really completely different level. So a quick example on how to customize stuff. We use decoration and recommend decoration for pretty much everything in SYLJUS, for services, for repositories, and so on. But for models, we simply use inheritance because it works best and it gives the best developer experience. So if you want to add add some fields to our shipment model, which obviously one order can have many shipments, you extend the base entity from SYLJUS, from the core. You add some setters, getters, whatever you want in the code. You override methods. You tell SYLJUS that from now on, for the shipment resource, please use my class. You generate and execute migrations for doctrine. You migrate your database, and SYLJUS starts using your model from now on. So you don't need to configure anything else. In just few lines of PHP code and YML, you tell SYLJUS, hey, use my shipment model. You can do it for user, for products, for product options, for pretty much any model in SYLJUS. And the same goes for the forms. So if you want to add some custom field to the form, in this case, this is a snippet from my workshop where we add these different packaging types. You override the shipment form, and this automatically appears in the checkout so that the customers can select different packaging methods from the checkout. You just configure next to the model. So as you can guess, you have the same configuration for controller, for form, and so on. So customization in SYLJUS is a lot of conventions, because you can also override the form by naming it the same way, not the class, just naming the form type in Symfony sense. But there is also configuration options. So we are trying to kind of mix the best of two worlds. And the same is for the workflows that we have in SYLJUS. We obviously use state machine. We configure it through YML. Actually, XML is supported as well. It's just a matter of choice. We prefer YML. So if you want to extend some of the workflows that you have in your application, you can configure custom callbacks and execute them on specific transitions in the order workflow, in the shipment workflow. Pretty much all the logic in SYLJUS is based on the state machine, the checkout itself as well, too. So how to get started? SYLJUS is trying to be as close as possible to Symfony. So you install it the same way as you do with Symfony. You create a project through Composer, which downloads you the latest version from packages. You execute SYLJUS install command that will check your database, allow you to load fixtures in dev environment, and so on. You pick the base currency and set up the admin account. And then you can use the built-in server that comes with PHP to spin up the shop, and you can open it already in your browser. It will be in dev environment, so it will be much slower than production environment, but you will have access to logs, you don't need to clear the cache every time you change templates and so on. You have access to the Symfony Web Debug toolbar, which we actually extend with some extra functionality that as a developer allows you, for example, to switch between different channels and so on. So I really encourage you to try it out. We have a really intensive development going right now. SYLJUS has been tested by community for many, many months now in kind of the shape that it is currently in. In May, we plan to release the alpha version with improved admin interface. There's something cool for front-end devs as well. We are not front-end gurus. SYLJUS focus on Symfony side of things and so on, but we use NPM, Gulp, and all this cool stuff that is trendy this month in JavaScript. So it's quite nice. The next alpha release will be with also something that we are already working on. It's just a simplified shop structure that, again, focuses not even on the way that SYLJUS works, but more on the developer experience, so that you have a clear base to override templates and so on. In July, we plan to release beta, which will focus on the bug fixing. We'll also work on a lot of new tutorials, both video and written tutorials in the documentation. So I would really love to see some of you on GitHub in the coming months to help us catch all the all the bugs, issues that we have, because we want to have a really strong, stable release. The documentation is available on docs.sylyus.org. I also encourage you to visit our website. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer them. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Yeah, there's a question.
On which Symfony version is it based?
Currently, we are based on Symfony 2.7. We have made some steps to upgrade to Symfony 2.8. The only big problem with upgrading to 3.0 that we have right now is the BC breaks that have been done in the form framework. We use that heavily. If you're familiar with Symfony, in Symfony 2.x, it was possible to define form types with names. Like in case of SYLJUS, it's, for example, Sylius_product. That's the name for the product type, for the product form type. In Symfony 3.0, they unfortunately dropped support for that. You need to reference form types by specific class, which is completely not cool with our philosophy, where we don't hard code anything. We want to allow you to define your own product class and so on. But we have one of our community members actually works on a bundle that brings back that support for Symfony. So I think we will upgrade very soon. Thank you for the question. Anyone else?
Hey.
Hey.
Can you tell a little bit more how you do how you change information between the bundles so you can keep the decoupled stuff? So, for example, how do you bring information from one bundle to another, and how it keeps generic enough to change everything?
Yeah, if you look at this, I think it explains the best that the core is actually just another bundle in Symfony, and it's really a bundle that you can include in your kernel, and it's also a PHP component. So let's say that if you want to build a shop on Laravel, you can take the core bundle and have pretty much the same business logic that SYLJUS has in Symfony, because the whole business logic lives in the component, not in the bundle. But if you want to glue things in a different way, you will skip the core and use the other components. So the core is the place where all components meet together. Like the core is this default SYLJUS implementation. If you want to taxation component and product interacting differently, you have two options. You either drop the core and implement your own integration, or you customize the core, which is most of the time the better way. If you have still full shop. Like if you have a full shop, I would always opt for customizing the core if it's close to a standardized experience, because it saves you basically a lot of time. But yeah, it's this kind of decoupling that has the glue in the core. Thank you for the question. Anyone else?
My question is, if you're using core to glue the components together, and then if you only buy, for example, 2 modules or something, you need to have core with all the gluing functionality inside. You don't have a core deliverable in the parts, for example, like
No, it's not that level of decoupling. But you can still, you don't need to install the core in your project, but you could still, for example, reuse some classes from it. But generally, yeah, if you want to take, for example, only the product catalog and the taxation bundle, then you need to integrate them in your way. But this is mostly the case anyway, because there is no way to create a very generic glue between them that will fit. This kind of glue is already in the core, and it works for standard web shops or for customized shows. But if you have something really, really custom that you need to build from scratch, you just glue the components on your own. Does it answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I have another question.
Yep.
So for other shop systems like Magento, they are heavily built on modules. So other developers can develop a module and you put it in your shop. Do you have a similar concept here? Yeah, this concept actually doesn't come from Sylius. It comes from Symfony, and this is the bundle system. So I don't know, if you look at Sylius Twitter feed, I recently retweeted some bundle that integrates with some e-commerce tools from Google. So if you want to create a plugin for Sylius, currently you just create a Symfony bundle. And what is cool about that is you can also use, like Sylius is a quite young project, but it already can benefit from around 3,000 bundles that come with Symfony, because it's a Symfony app. So if you want to integrate RabbitMQ in your Sylius project, you don't need a Sylius plugin to do that. You could develop one that integrates specifically with Sylius and does something with products, for example. But if you just want to have integration layer with RabbitMQ, you go to knpbundles.com, you find RabbitMQ bundle, you install it in Sylius. So this is the kind of plugin system that we have right now. We have a theme system, so you can install different skins for Sylius. It's not that well documented yet because we are still working on it, but in a sense of theme system, we have something like that. For plugins, we just use Symfony bundles. Any more questions? I think we are out of time, so if you want to have a chat about Sylius, e-commerce, Symfony, PHP, open source, just hit me up during the conference. I will be around. Thank you very much again.